Hi, thank you for joining me on the Fusion Elmer Guy channel. I'm Ken, KA6SUB, the Fusion Elmer Guy. Today we're going to be looking at the Fusion Elmer Guy's Repeater Series Part 2, IMRS Setup. It's a guide to setting up your DR2 repeater. This repeater series was created for repeater trustees to aid them in setting up their repeaters for use as standalone or to be used with IMRS and or IMRS Fusion networks. My aim was to set up a step-by-step guide for setting up the DR2X repeater with the LAN card. The repeater series video has been in the year in the making. It's time to release it. At this time, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the to the Fusion Elmer Guy channel. And if you like the video, please give me a like on that, and be sure to ring that bell so that you can be notified for future videos. It takes a team of dedicated individuals to create a network like we have here. Also, I'd make to thank many thanks to those who have helped test the system. Everybody's work has been well appreciated. It's a lot of work to do this. And also, I'd like to especially thank Larry WD8LSN and Troy KB8JTJ and Chuck N7CVR for their many hours of thought and experimentation and doing the legwork at the other end. We have spent many days tied together with the phone at the hip, just experimenting, kicking ideas around, trying different things. It's a lot of work, a lot of fun. We found out a lot of possibilities. We also found a lot of dead end roads and stuff like that. So it was a great challenge doing this, and we haven't stopped. We're still experimenting and playing around, but it was time to get some of this meat of what we discovered out for other hams to use. IMRS. Understanding IMRS and setting up of your first IMRS network. I hope this helps you with, and if you know anyone is interested in IMRS or having issues with it, please have them give me a call on my IMRS node 11618. I will be more than happy to try to help them in any way I can. I've always enjoyed a new challenge. What is IMRS? It stands for Internet Linked Multi-Site Repeater System. IMRS provides a way for you to build your system, your network of repeaters that can easily be accessed by your users. When you create the network of repeaters, you may have them set up as standalone, and that would be so each repeater can be in, let's say, a local mode, and whether you're using it on FM or digital, you would just be going out in your general area. If you wanted to contact another repeater, you would change your DGID code, and that would allow you to, if you will, connect to another repeater in your system. As long as you keep a QSO going, and there's what's called a IMRS TOT or timeout timer, and generally we set it for 30 seconds. As long as you don't have any inactivity for 30 seconds, everything stays connected. Anybody, regardless of their DGID code that joins in on the QSO, is in the system. It only takes that one code to open up the gate, if you will. The other way is to set it up so that you have what we call default setting, and you have a default group set up. So you may have 3 or more different repeaters in this group. And as long as you just key up using whatever that DGID group code is, that repeater will automatically tie with all the other repeaters in the system. They will act and function as one repeater in real time. So you talk, you release, the other person answers back. We always do recommend a little, drag your feet time for somebody to get in, join the QSO, but not necessary. It does work. There's no real wait time. So it'd be just like using your repeater in local mode. Why use IMRS over Wires X? Well, I call it the Wires X freedom. So when you use an IMRS, you have a connection in your system, whether it's a on-call connection, standalone in other words, or whether it's a defaulted system or a combination of. You're not using Wires X. Wires X is great when you want to connect to another repeater, and then this one over here, and then that one over there. Most people that are using Wires X for linking their repeaters together, those are permanent links. Those links stay up all the time. And the trouble with using the Wires X is it is not a peer-to-peer system. It's a hybrid, so it's a combination of a peer-to-peer and a network server combination. And so if you have that type of a system where you have 3 or even 2, 3, 4 multiple repeaters tied together using Wires X, you can merely just go in and use IMRS to accomplish the same thing. Now, always does create other issues and stuff. We'll go over all that. But now you have the use of the Wires X system, and you can use that to be calling other other repeaters systems around the world, and free up that system. The requirements. Each repeater must be a DR2X or XE with a LAN card active. Each repeater must have an on-site internet access. Each repeater must have a global IP address. You must be able to forward one port to your repeater. And you cannot have a Wires X HRI 200 plugged into the back of the repeater. So those are very important requirements. You've got to be able to meet each one of these requirements explicitly. So you can't fudge on any of those requirements there. Software ports and IP addresses. Now, I'm not going to be going over that right now, these settings in the LAN card. All this information is covered very well in the manual. Now, I might, at some point in time, do a video on this, but at this current time, I don't have any plans to do it right away. It is most important that these steps be done correctly before moving on. So if you are in the process right now of setting up your repeater and you have not set up the software and the ports and the IP addresses, you need to stop at this point. That needs to be done. Your network cannot be built without knowing the global IP address for every repeater that is going to be in your system. It is very, very important. You have to have that information in your hand. Each repeater operator is going to have to be doing the same thing you are, putting the same information, because each repeater has to have that global IP address in its software loaded on the repeater. Each repeater has to have the same port. 21110 needs to be forwarded to that repeater for that global IP address. So you need to make sure you have all those things taken care of before you move on. Actually, the next step here is planning, and we'll go to that. You can move to planning because it takes planning to get this together. So maybe this slide's in the wrong spot, but as it says here, plan, and plan some more. And when you're all through with all that and you think you got it all done and you got it together and working, then you go, oh gee, I didn't plan for this, or I didn't plan for that, or this has changed and that's changed. And you'll have to sit down and make sure the changes fit into the game plan. So each repeater must have a global, a DGID, a unique DGID code from 1 to 99. Now, I have here a tip. 00 can be used, but may cause problems and is not advised. There are some workarounds to make it, that are needed to make that work, but it's not 100%. And I will probably do a video on that. A lot of people want to start out with 00 as a DGID local code, and it does work. Like I said, you will have to build some workarounds to make the system work, but at any point in the time, if you decide to use a default group other than what's set up currently when you get to the repeater, then 00 is out the door. So you just need to plan for all that. And here comes the fun part, setting up the repeater. Very important to understand the DR2X DGID list. When you get to this screen here and you see this screen, you're going to be looking at that and it really, you don't know what to do with it. So this is basically what my repeater looks like. And this, just to let you know, the screen is divided into 3 parts. A is the top line, part B is the second line down, and part C is all the sequential lines thereafter. Part A is where you put your local / default DGID code. Now, at the time I took these pictures, I was using 00. That has been changed. But anyway, 00 is in there. And, like I said, it does work with some workarounds. So the code you put in there, whatever it might be, it will be your local and your default codes. B. Now B is, sometimes it's hard to understand what B is all about. B is all the repeaters in your system. Every repeater in your system is going to have a default code or a local code. That code needs to be in this line. Everything except yours. And that's where the default code is 00 will lead you astray and make it where you will end up saying, okay, give it up. But anyway, so if you have different repeaters in your system, there's yours and say 3 others, you're going to have 3 other DGID codes on that line. The next group, the C group, is where you put all of the groups that you create. So let's say you want to have, just for drill's sake, a group for you and one other repeater. I would never advise doing this, but to me, a group should never be created unless it's for your repeater plus 2 others or more. You're limited on your DGID codes, you're going to use them all up. So you got to do this and keep it down. So whatever groups you create will subsequently be there. So now every DGID that's going to open up the repeater is going to be either in A, B, or C. Oh, by the way, B is also a place where you'd put callable codes. And we can get into that later. There's codes that are callable. You can call them up, but they're not groups, and they're not something else. But anyway, any code that's going to be used that isn't in A or C will go into B. It's important to understand this concept, the way it works. Failure to do that will make your system fail. So we did talk over some of this in section A. We talked about your local code going in there, whatever it might be. Currently, my local code is 02. It was 02 back then, and when it was 00 there. But remember, I talked about workarounds. I had to create a workaround to make that work, so that I could be recognized by the rest of the group. But it's doable. It just, like I said, it's not advisable because it does create problems in the long run. Anyway, yeah, we can set this all up. Sort of went over all of that. Talked about using the DGID 00. That is like no code. There's no tone if you're looking at an FM repeater. So that's like having your tone turned off when you're transmitting in 00. If you're listening in 00, it means you don't care what you hear. You're going to hear it whether it's got a tone or not. Using the DGIDs 01 through 99, that's equivalent to using the CTCSS or DCS tones on your repeater. You'll have to have the right matching tone to open up your repeater. In this case, in IMRS, or in the digital side of the things, it's set up so that you don't have just one. You can have multiple tones, if you want to call it tones, multiple codes that will open up your repeater, depending on what those codes are going to do. So, they could be used for linking, they could be used for just signaling, but if they're going to be used at all, they have to be in A, B, or C. So they have to appear, somewhere. And let's see more on section A. I think we pretty well beat this to death here. Yeah, we talked a little bit about default codes. So when you put your code in on your repeater, and we're setting this up for the first time, that is your local / default code. But you can have a default code different than that. There is a procedure to follow to create a default code, and that will be covered in a different, actually part 3 covers that. So when you go into part 3, that'll be on how to set up a default group, and then you'll have a default code to work with. Okay, in section B, we talked about how the repeaters that are in your system all need to be in there. All those DGID codes for every repeater in your system will be listed on the second line, group B, if you will, except yours. because yours is already in line A, the first line, or group A, first line there. So you won't need to put it in a second time. And so any code that you want to use that's not already in A or C, we haven't got to C yet, and those are what we call the callable codes. Those codes will be also in B. It's sort of a catch-all group, if you will. And section C, this is where you'd be building a group. So you'd be making up a group that is made up, several repeaters. We'll be going into that and talking about that in just a minute. Every entry you make in group C has to be made in every repeater in the system. Well, I shouldn't say every repeater, because if it's involving them. So if you have a group made up of repeater 1 and repeater 2, but you have, say, 5 repeaters in the group, you wouldn't put that listing in those other repeaters. You'd only put it in group 1 and repeater 1 and repeater 2. And likewise, if repeaters 3 and 5 had a group created between the two of them, then they too would have that in their groups, but they wouldn't appear in 1, 2, or 4. Like I said, this is the fun part. This is where you're going to test your brain and try to come up with some workable plan and making these things where you can see how it's going to be set up before you actually go set it up. Speaking of which, I snagged this out of the Yaesu manual here. They have a nice little example, so you can go over this. I really feel sorry for them that they don't know where Northern California ends and begins. I got a kick out of that. Living here all my life, I know that LA is not in Northern California. So I don't know how they managed to put it together like that. But anyway, as you see here, they have a graphical picture of some repeaters. They have some names under them and the codes for them. And then they have the groupings and the bars at the bottom of that first top half of the page shows the different groups that they've tied together and the codes that are used for that. Then they have a graph where they actually lay all that out in about the same manner so that you again can see it graphically. I use a spreadsheet for that bottom half. I do it on a spreadsheet and I use color bars, and I have my repeaters set up, and then I can look at the different DGID codes and how they relate to each repeater in the system. And I can just slide it around and and look and see whether there is or is not any conflicts, because that pops up real fast showing conflicts if you're trying to use the same DGID code more than once. That DGID code then will also show you what repeaters should be popping up, and each one that should be popping up should have the proper coding in it for that. The others wouldn't have the same coding. So, this is something that you'll need to set up in some fashion, some way that you want to do it. Like I said, I set up a spreadsheet to do it. Troy in our group, KB8 JTJ, is a spreadsheet guru. He's set up some nice, really fancy spreadsheets for us to use. The one I set up for this is one I did on my own. It's not quite as fancy, but I think it can stand its own. It's just beyond. It's just one step beyond basic, but it works. So, yeah, we have a tendency to use what we're good at, and spreadsheets are not my real forte. But I teased Troy about he couldn't eat breakfast without making up a spreadsheet to figure out what he was going to eat. But anyway, he's got it down pat. Okay, so here again they show their stuff, and I need to caution you somewhere here. I'm going to read through this here real fast, but I'll let you read through that. And again, I'm always available to answer questions, so feel free to give me a call there. 43206 is another node you can get a hold of me on. So if you do WiresX 43206, give me a call. That one pops up on the whole system. It doesn't just single out one repeater. So that's not in there. Let me move on to the next one. And again, here I mentioned you should have some system, some way to see this on your own. Like I said, I created a spreadsheet that I find works very well. And I also have a road map, you will, of the two portions of our system. We have a IMRS linking portion, and we have a WiresX linking portion. I don't have that example anywhere in these slides, but my repeater here in Gold Run is actually the gateway between the WiresX and the IMRS system. That's where the two tie together, is here. Our hub for our WiresX is actually in Twin Falls, Idaho. And of course, as we explained before, the IMRS is a peer-to-peer system, so there is no real hub for that. Just everything's all peer-to-peer tied together. Okay, so now I have taken this chart that's out of the manual and what's on the screen, and I've showed the two. Now what you don't see on the manual, you don't see B. Group B is not there. They don't talk about it. But it's necessary that be put in every repeater in the system. Or I should say every repeater that is in the system needs to be in that list except yours. So the next person's repeater would have everybody's but theirs in group B. Just to make that clear, that needs to be there. If you don't have that there, it doesn't work. So again, I've gone over the writing down at the bottom, goes over all that, tries to get it sunk in so that you understand it. It's very important. So you will need to download your software from the Yaesu website. So you would go under the DR2X, and down in, when you go into that the software and manuals and all that section there, you will find the IMRS software, and you'll need to download that software, get it on your computer, get it set up, use a cable to set your computer, connect your computer to the repeater. Very important lesson to learn. They sent you a cable with your repeater when you got your repeater with the IMRS board on it. That is a data cable. Now, They also make cables that look exactly like it, that are not data cables. They are power cables. And if you put your cable down next to a power cable and then you don't remember which one's which, you will have a problem if you grab the wrong one, because no data will pass through it. So keep that in mind. I made that mistake. I went to a repeater site up on a hill to make changes, had everything in hand, plugged everything in, and nothing worked. And lo and behold, it took me a while, but it was a wasted trip, because down off the hill I had to come and make another trip up with the correct cable. So now what I've done, I've purchased data cables, and I actually now have on the handle of the repeater tied a data cable. So when I get there, there's one there even if I don't bring one. So that mistake will not happen again. But yeah, it took me some time, because I had to go through all my cables to find a data cable that would work. In the meantime, later, I ordered more, a bunch of them, and now we're fixed. That is not going to happen again. This is one of those things. You want to learn from somebody else's mistakes. So it actually pays to have a couple extra of those cables, and actually somehow affix them to the repeater, so that particularly if your repeater's up on a hill somewhere, you don't want to make that round trip. I can go into some stories. It's not the first time that's ever happened. But that's what we're not here for. So anyway, moving on. I think I hit everything. Oh yeah, when you go through and you're doing a repeater search after you've got everything set up, and you got to be in unison with everybody else in your system. So you guys all probably need to plan to do this the same day at the same time. I mean, yeah, one man can go around and hit all the repeaters, but then if there's an error somewhere, you got to find what repeater and go back and do it again. So it's better to have several guys, one at each repeater that's involved in going through on the phone, setting it up, checking, making sure. But there is a search button, and you press that button. It's going to show up every repeater that you have inputted in there, and it's going to come up red, or it's going to come up blue. We want it to come up blue. If it comes up red, then you've got something wrong. It's not working right. It's got to be resolved before you leave, because when you leave, you expect that system to work. So, and then also be sure to save your settings. You want to save them both to the computer and to the device itself. So when you're through, before you shut down, in fact, actually, if you forget to do it and you go to shut down, it's going to ask you if you want to save it to the device. It will not ask you to save it to disk, but it will ask you if you want to save it to your device. So please do that and get that done. Now, moving on. This is where I talked about this example they had in the manual. Please use it as an exercise. In real life, don't do this. Don't set anything up that way they set it up, because they're setting it up one repeater to another repeater. You don't need a group set up with only 2 repeaters in it. You already have that. I mean, you want to call repeater 5 and your repeater 3, you just change your DGID to 5 and it comes up. If you create a group and you call that 7, now you just used uselessly a code. And if your group ever grows, you're going to end up with these codes that you're going to have so many codes. Truthfully, you're not going to remember them all. You're not going to use not even a third of them. So set up a couple codes Like you might have an all-call code, use it for 99, put some code in there where you put it in and create a group so that group is for every repeater in the system. So you bring up that one code, it immediately ties all repeaters together. That we know we're going to need. If you're going to be using, if there's a repeater you know that is going to be connected, you're going to connect to a lot or whatever, I would set that up maybe, to be 2 plus your repeater. So it'd be 2 or more repeaters. So you might set something up along that line. And if there's repeaters you call all the time and you're always talking to them, I would consider setting up a default group for that and just have it always there. So every time you key down, everybody in that group is listening, and anybody in that group can answer. So again, as we talked about setting up all the codes, you just want things that work better, and they work better when they're simple. So keep that in mind. I always call the Yaesu system here, the Yaesu KISS stands for Yaesu, I forgot what it was, Keep It Simple System. Yeah, Yaesu Keep It Simple System. And it can be done and function fantastically. The simpler it is, the better it works. Okay, so now we're actually going to go in and set up your system. So you go to your repeater, you're going to hit the A setup button. Now again, this is assuming that A is where your repeater is set up. You can set your repeater up in B side of the repeater. It's rarely done. There is a reason to do it, but it's rarely done. I only know of one repeater, to my knowledge, that I know of, that actually has a repeater set up functioning in one. And I know the reason why. But commonly, B side is the side that you're going to be using. Not B side, A side is the side you're going to be using. So, and that'll leave B side free for other things you want to do down the road. So when we get to this screen, we're going to hit the F button. And then when we hit the F button, we're going to come up with this screen. Now I have my finger over it, but that is the ID mode button. And when you look at that button, before you put your finger up there, before you touch it or do anything else, it should say DGID. If it says DPID, tap the button and it'll toggle to DGID. Once you're on DGID, then press and hold that button for approximately 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds and release it. When you release it, this is the screen that will come up. So in this screen, we should have already set up our local DGID, and in this case I was using 00 at the time I took these pictures. Since then, like I said, this has been in a year in the making, so things have changed even on my system since then. And currently, if you look at this on mine, it says 02 rather than 00. But yeah, so anyway, now you're going to take and oh, actually, so yeah, so we go ahead and you want to tap that that line. When you tap that line, you're going to get this. So we're going to set up the local. This is where we didn't do it. So I'm sorry, we're going to set this local DGID up. We're going to change it to 03. And you do that by making sure that that DGID bar is blue, and you move the up and down arrows to get to the DGID code that you want. And in this case, we're using DGID 3, and that's there. Where it says downlink, own, don't touch it. Okay? That's for another video somewhere down the line, and that is rarely used, but it's a neat feature. But neat features are only usable if you need them. And this is one of those areas where not too many people need them, so it won't probably get used. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take and tap the line that says name. And when we tap that line that says name, we're going to get an edit screen. So right now what I'm doing is I'm copying the manual that they have that we showed earlier in the screen. So if you have that manual in your hand and you're looking at it, you can sort of follow along the bouncing ball here and see what we're doing. So we put down the location, San Diego. Now keep in mind, whatever goes in this field goes nowhere else. It is there for your eyes and your eyes only. Nobody sees it. You don't have to put anything in that line. It can be left blank. But it would be nice to know what that code was for. So it's a notation line for your information only. So when you look at that screen, you go, oh, that's the code for San Diego. Okay? So you put that in, and then you press the enter button. And so now this is what you end up with. So now we're going to hit the back button, and we're going to go back to this screen here. So now, this is the second screen on that page, this page we're looking at. Now we're going to move down to the repeater group. So you're going to tap the repeater group line there. So you press the repeater group line for a second there, and it will change. So what it's going to change to is going to give you the screen on the left. You hit the edit button down at the bottom, and then you get the screen on the right. And at that point, you put in your DGID codes for all the repeaters in your system, except yours. So you'd put 01 in, you'd put 02 in, 03 is your repeater, 04 is the next repeater on the system. So this is what you do until you get all of your repeaters in there. Now, when you're through, you're going to hit the back button. And you'll probably have to hit that back button a couple times to get back to the screen here. Now, as you see, there's room for just so many to show up on the screen. And if we would have had to put 2 more in there, we probably would not have gotten 2 more in there. We probably would have gotten 1 more, and that was it. So anything above what you can get on in that little window will not show up, but they are there. When you open that back up in the edit mode, you will see all of them in there for you. Okay, so next we're going to set up the groups. So as it says here, we're going to tap the group 1 DGID. So we're going to go ahead and tap that. This is the screen that's going to come up. We're going to take and use the arrow buttons up and down until we come up with the particular code that we're looking for. So as we do that, this is what we come up with. Now we're going to tap the register DGID So when you do that, you're going to come up with a text screen, an edit screen there. And in that edit screen, you're going to tap in or type in the different DGID codes of the different repeaters in that group. So whatever that group is made up of, you're going to put those DGID codes in there just like we did earlier in the all the repeater things, but here it's only the repeaters of the group. Now, again, I'm going to tell you this particular screen that you're editing here is a notation screen. You don't have to put anything in there, but I advise you to do so because it is so easy to forget what really was attached to DGID 20, let's say. Here, if you look at it, you can see, oh, these are the repeaters, and when I do 20, all these repeaters are going to come up. Anything that's not in that list will not come up. But keep in mind, it has nothing to do with that list. That list is strictly a notation list, because every repeater that you're putting in that list, those repeater operators are going to be putting that same information in on theirs. So this is basically merely setting a flag on your repeater that when it sees 20, it's going to say, hi, I'm here, and it's going to connect. And like I said, that line is strictly a notation. It's going to let you know, it's telling you who you think is going to be coming up. So anyway, moving on. So we're inputting that information. It shows that there. Now we're going to back out of this. So you're going to hit back twice. So this is what we have. Now we have the group name. So we're going to tap that line. We're getting an edit screen. And so following the book, the manual that we copied this out of, this is going to be Southern California. So we're going to type in Southern California. Again, this is a notation line. It is not for anybody. Nobody's going to see it. It's there for your information. So now you know that you've called this the Southern California group. And when you hit that, those repeaters that you put in there are going to come up. And again, that was from another notation line. The only thing that means anything is that first DGID code of 20 that you put in up on the first line. Okay, moving on. So we got that information in there. Now we're going to back out of that. So we're going to hit the back button. And now you're ready to enter the next group. You got this. You can move ahead on your own and set up all the groups so that they're all set up the way you and your repeater group has decided to put the things together. So once it's all set up, we set up a one for all areas here of 50. We showed that. So that has everybody's, and as you can see, there's not enough room. Three DGIDs are going to go in that line. That's it. The rest of them won't show on there. They're tourniqueted in the viewing window. So our local repeater is the San Diego repeater. We're assuming this is us. And that repeaters 1, 2, and 4 are elsewhere. DGID code 20 is going to bring up Southern California. DGID 50 is going to bring up all areas. And I think, if I remember correctly, there was one for Northern California too. I don't have the manual in my quick little hand here. So now moving on here. Now we have this all together. We're going to press back, back, and back. So first screen, second screen, third screen, and last screen. So when we get to this last screen that's shown here, keep in mind that the only time your repeater will repeat, the transmitter will work, is when it's in this last screen. It will not function in those other windows. Okay? So keep that in mind, and you need to get back there in order to have this working. Now, once you've got this set up, as we've gone through, and each repeater in your system has this set up just like yours with those exceptions I explained, you're going to all be together. So at this point, your repeater system should be working. It has a default IMRS TOT of 30 seconds. Now what this means is that if there's 30 seconds of inactivity that goes on, the link will be dropped. Now this works for everything except the default group, so don't get this mixed up with the default groups. But whenever you have this normal setup like this, a standalone with you call and use groups and stuff, anytime you've called another group, you've connected a link together, it will be active until there's 30 seconds of inactivity, then it drops. During which time, while it's active, anybody with any DGID code can talk, as long as the DGID code they have is acceptable by your repeater. So again, if you're not using 74 and somebody's trying to come in on 74, it will not open up your repeater. But if it is an acceptable DGID code for the repeater, it will keep your link open. So you could go away and let somebody else carry on the QSO. When they're through and they quit talking and there's inactivity for 30 seconds, it drops. It will take somebody with that DGID code to bring that back up and get it working again. So now beeps. You're going to start hearing IMRS beeps. You're going to hear one beep when your system connects. So when you bring up a DGID code for, say, 20 as they used here, when you unkey, you're going to hear, after a few seconds, you're going to hear beep. That just lets you know that that connection has been made. When the repeater drops after 30 seconds of inactivity, you're going to hear beep, beep. And that is your indication that the link has dropped. Anytime that the link is connected and you want to change to a different link, or bring up another link, you can't do that until that link drops. So you have to wait the 30 seconds in order to hear the two beeps to let you know that the link has dropped. Now you're going to be hearing the three beeps. You're going to be hearing error beeps. So when you hear an error beep, frequently means something's gone astray. Maybe the link wasn't made. Maybe it could be as simple as there's a repeater in your system that is running AMS and there's an FM QSO going on. Well, if there's an FM QSO, well, the digital's been busied out. Well, that's letting the system know that something went wrong with that repeater. Well, it doesn't tell you what went wrong, but that's what the case is that it has gone it's got run into a busy out signal on a repeater. So at some time when that group, or when that FM QSO ends and your link is still up, it will automatically connect and they become part of that group if they were so designated to be so. Well, this this is the end of the part 3. I wish you'd take the time, if you haven't already subscribed to the Fusion Elmer guy, to please subscribe to my channel. And if you've gotten some benefit out of this this video here, please give the video a thumbs up. Definitely need that. And also don't forget to bang the bell up there so that you can get notified of future videos. And be sure to take a look at some of the other videos I have. I'll be expanding the repeater series more as time goes on. Repeater is sort of my love. I sort of like the repeater side, always have. And I have my fun doing that, and everybody else has their fun using the system. And that's my fun and enjoyment is listening to them enjoy what was put together. So I'd like to thank you for investing your time to learn more about Yaesu's Fusion, the gold standard. Thank you very much for watching. 73 from the Fusion Elmer guy, Ken, KA6SUB.